so that we can allow visitors to join us if they're not able to join us today, so they can see hear our wonderful topic today. But we would like to welcome Miss Sharon Meade from the Outer Banks Center for Wildlife Education. She's a native, I'm correct on that, of Currituck County?
As well, almost.
Almost, but probably long enough to be considered a native.
Yes. Yes.
Of
All
Currituck.
ties here.
Of Currituck County, and she's going to talk about the different hunt clubs today that are located throughout Currituck County. As you noticed, we were chit-chatting because my husband saw the lecture when it was advertised at the library in Currituck, and he was like, you have to have this lecture at the museum, because my husband and my son, probably my son's got the bigger passion for duck hunting than my husband does, but he has the passion because that's what my son wants to do, is duck hunt. He lives it, he breathes it. And right now he's begging me for another duck, but not that we only have 4 in the yard right now. So just
sounds about par for the course.
Just explaining his love for it. So Miss Sharon, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you today. And if I can just mention one thing, if you have a question for the program today, if you'll either type it in our Q&A or if you'll type it into the chat session, we will get to it. And we already have one question. What type of questions do you want me to ask you, Sharon?
If you're having, we're going to talk about the past, and we'll tie in our nature. If someone has or family ties, we can certainly try. This is I would tell everybody, this is a broad subject. It can be very involved, so we're going to be kind of moving fast. But it's always something that I will tell you that I learned something after every one of these, because there were so many families involved and so much tied into Currituck County that we still don't know probably half of what we could find out about hunt clubs during this time. Can everybody hear me now?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining me. As Lori told you, I'm Sharon Meade. I'm the curator here at the Outer Banks Center for Wildlife Education. And again, we're going to talk about the hunt clubs of Currituck. And what's also good to know is that it changed things in the county. I know you can read the screen. So we're talking about over 100 clubs in Currituck and Back Bay, and we're not even counting when we start and cross the bridge and go down to Dare and all the way down to Core Sound. So this was quite a change, especially for Currituck. It ended up creating a whole cottage industry here in Currituck County, and probably Dare as well, because it helped people have an income. It changed laws, and due to the influence of some of the people that built hunt clubs here, it started education and many more things. And we're just going to try to go through these because there's an awful lot, and I hope you enjoy it, because I really love talking about this. So, hunt clubs. This is a old poster. Well, it's from the 90s, which is here starting to get old soon, isn't it? And this just shows you hunt clubs all up and down the Strand here. Now, this is a remnant picture, of course, at Jones's Landing. I keep my boat here, by the way, because I'm lucky enough that I can still boat across the Sound to work. But here we go. So what started the whole trend of hunt clubs and the change was actually nature changing in Currituck Sound. So if you look at the map here, all the inlets closed, and Currituck Sound, and of course down through to the Albemarle, not as much, became fresh water. And with that fresh water, the submerged aquatic vegetation changed. So now you're waterfowl and you're on your migration, and there is halfway there's this lovely body of water. You can see Currituck Sound right there on the map. And it is full of fresh water, so I can stop and rest and I can drink. And most importantly, you see there to the right, the wild celery or the eelgrass was very, very thick in Currituck Sound. Now, let's think about life in Currituck or 1800s. It's very rural. We all know that. So either you hunted or you fished or you raised some type of this is very odd one here, but raised turtles even for a living. It was hard times. So there's the Bell Farm that was once located in Snowden. I love this picture, and you can see from the picture that Mr. Bell probably loved his horses because they're right over there front and center. This one always tickles me. But again, you worked hard for a living. This is, of course, Courthouse Road in Currituck. There's the courthouse itself. So what happens is, as the grasses and the flyway became more prolific, more and more birds were coming into Currituck Sound. They were estimating anywhere from 1 million to 1.5 million birds coming in. They would literally darken the sky. And people found, of course, they'd always hunted duck because you could sustain yourself for food. And of course, because of what had happened as far as the submerged aquatics and that wild celery, it gave ducks a particular flavor, and so they were known as Currituck ducks. So they became very fashionable, and you were basically, think about it, it was a food craze when we kind of put it in today's parlance, to have this type of duck on your table because it tasted a certain way. So market hunting started. Now we're talking about after the war, and times were hard, and you could go and market hunt and make a very, very good living. It was hard work, and of course, Currituck was well suited because people were already fishermen and knew what to do and handled themselves on the water. So this all plays in, and of course, it brought innovation. You had to have boats. You needed something for shallow water, and we won't even go down the decoy line because there are so many decoy makers and styles that we could talk about, but maybe we'll save that one for another day. So you had, with market hunting, you had certain ways. You had these, what they call sink boxes and iron ducts to keep them in the water, Saunders Iron Factory. So you have all these things coming into play to keep the market hunting going. Now, as we get toward the end of the 18th century, they start pulling back on allowing market hunting. And we also had the introduction of federal regulations at the time. And of course, our first game commission. Currituck was, they think, probably the first county to develop a game commission, because if you look back in market hunting, and this was something they weren't aware of, that they always thought it was just going to be something endless and boundless as far as the amount of birds. They were killing sometimes 500 to 800 birds a day. And I know it seems just horrible, but like I say, at the time, they just thought they would always have this resource. And as that changed, again, as a cottage industry, we had barrel making because you had to ship those birds. Someone had to guide. This is a sit-up box you see here. And in this picture, the Wrights, you can see their boat to the left of the picture. It's full of decoys. And what you can see to the left were the decoys. To the right, you can see that is a sink box stuck in that boat with, and they sailed out or poled out. So again, very hard work, but you had to have somebody who could make all these things for you. So market hunting had provided that. People were making all of these things. And with the changes in the law and the war over, you had to have your boats. Sportsmen from the north started hearing about the hunting in Currituck Sound. They had a few up in Long Island, but again, these were very wealthy gentlemen who had heard about this. And so basically it was like a migration of them. Coming here, of course, could be quite difficult. There's the train station in Snowden. So when they came down, they came to stay for months at a time or weeks at a time. And what happened was they started buying up land here in the county. We had corporate clubs, and I won't read all this to you because you can see it. Corporate clubs, this would be the big boys mostly. Swan, and Pine, and Currituck had these where you had sometimes up to 60 to 70 people helping you run this club. We had, like, say, the corporate, same type of thing. It was run almost business-like in a sense, but you had to have people to manage, because big clubs like this, they would buy from sound to sea. They would have sometimes 3,100 acres, 2,000 acres. They bought it up. And so you can see this is Currituck Club in the picture. And you can see there's the sound, and you look in the background, and there's the ocean. So like I say, they would come in and get a big chunk. There were also, of course, small ones, which is 1 or 2 people. They would buy a club and own it together. Single ownership. When we think of that, of course, we think about Whalehead. Whalehead essentially was a private residence more than it was ever a club. But again, it employed as many as 60 people. So you think about that, how much hunt clubs sustain things in this county, especially during a time when jobs and things, money was hard. So we have our sporting lodges. Now, we had tons of these little ones like this. And again, you brought in people, they stayed in your house. Generally speaking, the wife cooked, so they got good food, and they got good hunts at a price that didn't break the bank. Because again, we're moving into say the 1920s and the 30s here. And of course, if you lived in Currituck and you were on the water, you had a very good access, and there were so many people that made decoys and made boats that this worked, as you can see. Small clubs, and A.B. Jones's was, of course, in Water Lily. The picture to your left is right where the ferry dock is now, by the way. That's one of the Brumsey brothers. Again, that's a load of decoys when you still had to push it out. So the hunt clubs had money, but they didn't have any experience. They couldn't go out there on the water by themselves. So again, we have all types. We're going to start right here in Idlet. This was the Wild Game Inn, and it was started in the 30s by Wallace O'Neill and Mark Doxey. This is no longer here, of course. This was another Wild Game Inn. This was the Gallup family, and they were down at Halls Harbor. And you can see they built right on the water. I mean, you launched right in the yard. But again, they had successful business ventures with these out of the home. Okay, here we go. This is Swan Island. Of course, this was one of those big corporate clubs. Swan Island is an interesting story in that these gentlemen came from Long Island on their yacht, the Anayanya. The inlet had closed somewhat, but during big storms, they would still reopen, and they actually got caught in a storm, came through a little inlet down. It was put you in where you see it like on a map. This would be like just south of Knott's Island. So they come in, they run aground, and there they are. So this, of course, happened in 1877. Excuse me. Yeah, about that. No, I'm sorry. They came in a little sooner before that. Anyway, they stayed in the marsh. They kept that boat in the marsh for over 7 years. And of course, it was owned by a Mr. Harris at the time. So he let them lease the marsh, and the boat burned to the ground in 1877. They bought Crow Island from Mr. Harris. Now, you can look on the deck of the boat there and see the little decoys right on top. So then they built their first farmhouse after Mr. Harris's burned in 1900. They built it burned. They built another one. It burned in 1910, and then they built the one that still stands today. It's a beautiful club. It's been there for quite some time. It is now privately owned. This is a picture of it in the ice. It has the board still there, mounted over the main fireplace. That is in Latin, that this place shines for me beyond all others. The lure for gentlemen of the time was society was pretty strict about, you had to dress for dinner, and you had to be very mannerly, and the strictures of society were pretty tough then in high society. So they could come down here, and who was going to see them, and they could have a drink and a cigar and eat when they wanted and didn't have to dress for dinner. And there you can see the picture that we just looked at right above the fireplace. There's an aerial shot of Swan Island. And you can see that it was very plain. The rooms were nothing particular. It was a place to stay warm, get a good night's sleep, and each member had a room, and they also usually had their own liquor closet. Again, and here's Swan Island today. It's quite beautiful. It's interesting at the top. You can see the big weather vane up there, and there is that shaft goes all the way through, and there's a duck on the bottom of it, of course, and a compass painted on the ceiling. So you can sit in the living room and watch which way the wind is blowing just by looking up at which way the duck is pointing. And they also have a cupola at the top, and you could go up there and observe the marshes and watch for waterfowl to come in. Directly across the marsh from them was the New Inlet Club. Now, the New Inlet Club, the family, though, the White family had owned that since the 1870s, and they were also, Mr. Leonidas White ran this club, and as he became more successful, they built onto the back. You can see it looks like kind of two different structures put together because they were so successful at it. Of course, they built the front, and that's where the hunters could stay, and the family lived in the back. And they ran that through the 1920s. Almost every large club that we talk about had burned down at least once. Or with the New Inlet Club, they were very close to the ocean over there. And if the dune line broke through, sometimes you could get so much overwash, it would take you out as well. We're moving right on. This is, of course, Mr. Pud White. This is at Knott's Island. Again, he had a little lodge. It was nothing but his house, and you can see it's right down there in the water. And if you look closely in the right-hand corner, he had live geese. That was another thing that was used during market hunting. It was outlawed after a time, but they kept their geese, and they were usually named them. There he is. Again, you can see his gentleman hunters here out front because they were in their suits. They hunted in their suits, you guys. They really did. And of course, his dog, and of course, in the background, it's a normal farm. There's cows over there on the right-hand side. We're moving on down. So, Currituck Gunning and Fishing Club. This is also still standing in Knott's Island. The actual land was first bought by them in 1890. The club members came down and, of course, built this very fine house and the grounds, and it's been through multiple owners. It's still standing today and is privately owned, and we're just kind of happy that at least there are some still standing. It's still a very attractive building in its own. Mr. Thomas Dixon, this would be over on Knott's Island as well. He was a famous author of The Klansman, and this was he was also a travel writer, a sporting writer. His book was made into the movie Birth of a Nation. And of course, this was the house he built over at well, this would have been mostly Mackay Island at the time. Again, it's a very nice house, and that was eventually torn down because he ended up selling this land to Joseph Palmer Knapp. If you live in Currituck, you hopefully know his name, and probably everywhere, Elizabeth City as well. Mr. Knapp was a very large philanthropist for Currituck County. This is his lodge he built. He bought Mackay Island in 1919 from Thomas Dixon, and then added on to his property. This is the back of his 37-room lodge that he built there. He was a very distinguished man and did amazing things for Currituck County. This is a picture of the house from 1950. Mr. Knapp established the education system in Currituck County. He built teacherages here. He brought in teachers and essentially started the complete education process here in Currituck County, because when he came in the 20s, excuse me, he found children and wanted to know why they weren't in school, and made quite the change. And to this day, the Knapp Mellon Foundation still supports education in Currituck County. And I hope that maybe on the next talk we can talk about Mr. Joseph Palmer Knapp. He started More Game Birds of America right over at that house, which eventually became Ducks Unlimited. Duck stamps that we know of, federal duck stamps. His list of accomplishments are so large that we'll have to talk about them on another day. What's interesting is right down the road from the Knapp land was John Corey. This is where the causeway is if you're going over to Knott's Island today. John Corey, or Corey's Club, as you can see, he built it right out over the water, and he was right down from Mr. Knapp. John Corey was the president of U.S. Steel at the time. So you can imagine the amount of wealth. And a quick story, when they took out the locks at Great Bridge and allowed the water flow, Mr. Knapp felt like it was polluting Currituck Sound. It lasted like that for 10 years. So he went to the government and asked them to please put the locks back. And a short story, we'll jump to it, is that government said they didn't have the money, and Mr. Knapp told him he would pay for it, or he would loan them the money. They said, well, they couldn't get the steel. So think about it. He walked down to his neighbor, John Corey, who was president of U.S. Steel. They got the steel, the locks got put back. Again, this is a man of great influence, but was excellent and good to Currituck County. So we move on down. This is the Flyway Club. This was owned by Mr. Ogden Reed. At the time, he was the editor of the New York Tribune. He had his house built somewhat on a European style. This is the second one because, like so many of the clubs, it burned more than once. And this is the final structure. Still standing today. It has now been bought and made into a wedding venue. The barns and stables here are, I will have to tell you, I find them much more beautiful than even the house. It is the original structure, the cupolas. They also kept sheep, but again, very elaborate stables, and the guides could stay up top. There were rooms up top, but again, this is, I'm happy to say, still there and being used for another purpose, but still standing. Okay, we've moved over to Monkey Island, and this is the caretaker's cottage. Now, Monkey Island, again, the deeds there go back to 1866. It had multiple owners. It was owned by the Penn family. You can see it's, this is of course later. If you saw it now, you wouldn't recognize it. The Penn family was with railroads, as you can see right there in the picture. To the right is the railroad bell, so they could ring that when it was foggy. And this is an aerial shot of the whole island. Sadly today, there's probably, if you put a little circle around the house in the middle right now, that's all that's left of Monkey due to the erosion. It was eventually made into a club managed by Travis Morris, which probably many of you know, before it was sold, and now went to the Nature Conservancy and then to Fish and Wildlife, and we're kind of in limbo there whether they were going to do a land trade with Currituck, but as of right now, no, it is still Fish and Wildlife. like many of the hunt clubs, they all had their land, and they stenciled things. There's the Monkey Island stencil. They guarded their land rather jealously. Pine Island. Again, here's one that's one of the big boys. It was the land originally owned by the Baum family. And Pine Island came in 1910 and bought it for $60,000. Okay, all the land. Again, like many of our hunt clubs, they went through 3 different clubhouses before the one that's still standing today. Dr. Julian Baum, who had grown up at actual Pine Island, where he'd been over there since 1903, became the superintendent. You can see geese right there in the yard. After the club was sold multiple times, it came into the possession of Mr. Earl Slick, and upon his passing, he donated the majority of the land of Pine Island to the Audubon Society. You can still go over there now. The original clubhouse is still standing, I'm happy to say, and they are turning it into a conservation and teaching station. Audubon is. They're working right now on sound erosion, but it's still there, and the land, again, will not be developed, and that's a really great thing. They still have the original land. As you can see, there's a picture from Pine Island that had a very successful hunt. Like all of the big clubs, they kept meticulous records, and we can glean a lot of knowledge from them over these things. It's wonderful that they did. After some of the ducks started to wane, the sheer amount of them coming out, they moved to different practices of propagation. So this is the old incubator from Pine Island Club. We have it over here at the gallery now. We have restored it, and we have the original letters that came with it. It was shipped all the way from California. It has 3 addresses in wax crayon on the bottom, and it says California to Kinston, North Carolina, to Poplar Branch. And somehow that's all it took, and that's how it got here. And we do have it. Come over and see us sometime. The Lighthouse Club. This picture is the Lighthouse Club barn. We don't have a picture of the actual club itself. It was over here on the bank as well. It dates back to 1874. And interestingly enough, when Mr. Knight, who was a member there, wanted to buy land and start his own club, he bought out the Lighthouse Club, which would have been, if we're looking at this picture, if you look to the right, it would have been located about a half mile from here. Excuse me. So he buys it out and starts 2,000 acres, by the way, and builds probably one of the most magnificent houses sitting on the ocean side of the state. At the time would have been called Coral Island, and we know it as the Whalehead Club. It took 3 years to build. He's a very dapper fellow. And of course, it's still standing today. The county now, Currituck County now owns it, and you can come over and tour it, and it's well worth it. And here's probably our most storied club. This is one of the first ones, or the first one, actually. And for the longest time, until it burned, it was the oldest hunt club on the East Coast that was still working as a hunt club. And this is the Currituck Club. It was owned, and let's see here, 3,100 acres. Again, the Baum family owned all this property over here, and they bought it from them. Sadly, it burned in 2003. But again, this was one where you had your corporate, you had a president, you had a secretary, you had a treasurer, and they employed many people. They had, like you say, someone to run the dock, someone to manage the land. You kept tallies on everything you did. This again, tally sheet from back when you went hunting. They had log books that you can go back and find out what the weather was the day they hunted, where they hunted, who ran the blind for them, and what they shot. And we're lucky enough here at the center that we have a lot of that here. If you'd ever like to come see it, and there is Mr. Fitzhugh. He was the secretary, and of course, some of the people that worked there. Goodhue, Livingston, Fitzhugh. They had some super booper names then, but again, this is why it became a cottage industry, because someone had to come cook, someone had to do the cleaning, someone had to come pick you up at the station. So in all, it created a whole cottage industry. You had marsh guards for some of these larger clubs. This would have been a tough job because there was no heat those days, and you had to be careful that you didn't burn yourself down in one of these little camps. Basically, they were so jealous of their land that they put men out on their marsh so that other people couldn't hunt it. This is what the inside looked like. Got a couple little bunk beds there, and kind of rustic would have been. These were also posted all around the properties. These were all printed on cloth. But most of all the big clubs had these. The small ones, of course, didn't. We've jumped over to the mainland now. This is the Dews Island Club. Again, this land dates back to the 1650s and in Jarvisburg now. And of course, started the club in the 20s. They got the Wright brothers, not Orville and Wilbur, the Wright brothers, John, Dennis, Dan, Will, and Charles, because they had their own little club at the time, to come and run this for them. Dews Island, of course, was then owned by the Chatham and Haynes family, and the Wright family helped manage it in past years. It is now privately owned, but again, still here with us, which is a wonderful thing. Bell's Island Club, many of you all know Bell's Island. Again, this land dates on deeds from the 1700s, and they ran a club until about the 1920s. These structures are no longer there, but like I say, you can still ride over to the island and imagine what it would have been. Narrows Island, this is right off Poplar Branch. Again, this would have been their boathouses. That is still in operation, and it was, again, purchased in 1881. And was sold back over and tied in with the Lighthouse Club, but again, was bought back out and is now, again, privately owned. And there's so many that we can't even talk about. If we remember from the original slide, there were over 100, but there's so many in the small clubs, Hampton and Blanton Saunders and White's and Barco's, and you can see Wright Brothers. C.G. Sawyer's was down toward Hog Quarter. There were little clubs down there. Barnes's over at Knott's Island, the old Dudley Island Club. The Williams Lodge, again, Knott's Island, the Lewitt Brothers, Knott's Island, Deals Island. Launch landed right there at Tulls Creek. And that's where Mr. Wilton Walker, who was a wonderful and well-known boat builder and decoy carver. So, like you say, it was a different world, but we've built a cultural and natural legacy from it. It brought us lots of things. It, sometimes maybe not always as far as buying up things, and sometimes having lawsuits. But look at this. Look at Poplar Branch landed. Hunt clubs brought in a different cultural connection with music and education. It changed our laws, and it provided. And of course, there's Poplar Branch today. And while we don't have the same society that we did with the hunt clubs, we have a rich legacy from it. And people still hunt and crab and fish and make their living on Currituck Sound. And some of us still come to work by boat. That's my chariot, by the way. And we still have birds. Maybe not the birds of the past, but we have them. And we have that wonderful heritage to look on and be proud of. And of course, as always, it's a beautiful place to be. Who has a question for me?
If anyone would like to type their question into the Q&A, that would be great. Or if you prefer chat.
I will tell you all that we have lots and lots of things, and I talked to Lori about when we did this one before the terrible C, and we all be glad when we don't have to deal with COVID. We can bring some artifacts over. I have lots of logbooks and things from the hunt clubs that are so enjoyable to look at, but until we can get to that, keep it in mind, and we'll come and see it. Come bring it over so everybody can see it. I hope you enjoyed this.
Most definitely. Maybe we can at that point have another topic and include the books with it, just to expand on what we have.
Yes.
Maybe Mr. Knight or the decoy carvers, because I know you have an extensive collection of decoys over at the centers.
Yes, we do. And this would, I mean, if we start talking about, when you talk about hunt clubs, innovative boat building, that's a whole huge subject. Decoys, gigantic. And of course, just the cultural references that we got during this time and the things that Mr. Knapp did. So again, I gave you a very abbreviated a sweep through hunt clubs today. So bear in mind that we can certainly expand upon this. And I hope we can.
Yes, most definitely. So I do have one question. How many duck blinds are in Currituck Sound now?
Over 200. I don't know the exact number, but I know that it is over that. And they still, like to this day, you have to get your blind. Excuse me, you have to get a guide, and you got to have boat, got to have decoys. So, but at least, yes, over 200 in Currituck Sound.
Are any of the old clubs that are still standing available for tours other than Wellhead?
That would be, Wellhead is the only one. We have like a new modern club, of course, in Currituck, Piney Island Club. But again, this is private. But again, it's good to know that there's at least one out there. But unfortunately, well, Audubon, when they have classes, they hold them lots of times at the Pine Island Club. So you could probably go on the website for the Pine Island Club, Audubon. And often, if they're giving classes over there, they do them in the clubhouse. Otherwise, yeah, almost, yeah, well, actually, no, they all are. They are all privately owned, the ones that are still standing.
Okay. Are any lodges still operating?
Yes, some of the small ones. Like say, they would be more toward these would have been the single ones. There's one, let's see, trying to think of the old ones. I think Williams and Barnes's and a few like that. Very few. Now it's down to like not so much lodges or clubs, would just be guides that are still working Currituck Sound. They have their blinds and take people hunting. That is still quite active here in the county, and Dare County and Pasquotank and all the different places, because you have, like I say, have your guide. If you want to come in from out of town, yeah, you're going to need someone to show you where to go.
Okay. And we just have one comment. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you all for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you about this today.
So do we have more questions today? I guess for some of them, for some of our visitors that might be wondering, can you obtain your own blind?
You can go through the Game Commission, and yes, they run a lottery, and you can put in to see if you can get one. And it is like a grab bag. Like say you put in, and they say there's 8 blinds available. You send in, it's again run on a lottery system. So if you get picked, you get that blind, of course, and then you have to go out and build it and bush it. And then if you would want to renew it, as long as you, again, they'll come back, you'll get your licensing every year. and you go in and renew your license, and you can keep that blind for as long as you renew your license and keep it up and keep it used. So yep, you sure can. You still hunt.
Then next, what is the going rate to get a guide?
I think I think that might be around $200 per man, depending on, and some probably maybe 100 to 200, depending on, like you say, the guide or how many days you go. I haven't priced one out in so long, but I know that it's usually about that, because like you say, you are talking about having to get you out there and get you out there safely and get you back and get you on the birds. And that takes some skill. So again, it's maybe not the cheapest thing, but it's people still are more than willing to do it and do so to this day.
Let's see here. Sharon, thank you for your presentation. Currituck County very fortunate in past years for the opportunity these clubs and hunting gave its residents towards employment and many other opportunities.
Yes, it did. It really did. Like you say, who would have thought? And it was all because of a nature change, and that changed everything.
And I mean, people still travel to this day, not
Yes.
just for the public clubs, but they travel from distance to
hunt Currituck Sound.
yes.
Yes, they do. Now, like you say, it's not like it used to be, but it was also in the days of sporting and the smaller clubs, because it was a time when if you wanted to take a vacation, or you owned a large business, and we haven't even talked about when we had the bass fishing craze, but what people would do, excuse me, they might hire a guide and for a couple of weeks, and then send their employees down, and that was their bonus to come down here. I mean, it was that popular and that well known that this was almost, this was a reward. This was a work bonus to be able to come down and stay in Currituck and go hunting or fishing, because it was that good. And we, like I say, we haven't even got into when we went through our bass fishing craze. That comes later, but something else we can talk about someday. Sure can.
Yes. I think really the next time I would like to touch on the decoys.
Oh, yes.
I still think that would be an excellent topic, because not like I said, not only do you all have, but we have a small display of decoys here at the museum also.
Right. And that's, like I say, one of those that could easily, because like I say, battery decoys, pond birds, just like I say, who built them, why they built them, different styles.
And how they also made boats, because we have Mr. Alva Wright's boat here in the museum, who was the well-known decoy. So I think that would be a wonderful topic.
Yes, we can. And his birds are worth a lot of money. A lot.
So what is the estimated impact of duck hunting today in Currituck?
It would not be, of course, even close to the numbers that we looked at from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s. The flyway, Atlantic flyway, has changed considerably. The amount of submerged aquatics here, but mostly the light, we found, has affected how birds come in and migrate through here. So I would estimate from that time, maybe 15% of what it used. I mean, it is small, but it's still, or maybe 20, if we 20%, if you were to compare it to what it used to be. It's just not as big a flyway anymore. However, weather and climate do change things, and the seasons. So you, like I said, we haven't had a really, really cold snap through here. Again, this changes things. It's still enough birds, and it's still enough heritage that people want to. But as far, if we were to compare it to hunting, say from the 70s, it has probably reduced by, it's probably only 20% of what it used to be.
It's amazing how much it can change.
Oh, yes. Well, and it is, because when you think about that, used to be, that body of water was salt and full of oysters and clams and salt fish. And in the amount of time that the inlets closed and that water became brackish to fresh and changed all that aquatic vegetation and what impact it had then. That's what changed it over into what they used to call hunt clubs, was the golden era. Presidents came to Currituck Sound to hunt. Like I say, Jack Dempsey, the fighter. People came to hunt.
In fact, we have one comment that, let's see here, President Grover Cleveland.
Yes.
At Leon's Summer Hotel in 1895, not the Inlet as club as pictured. So, and I think that, wasn't President Kennedy supposed to come and hunt just before his assassination?
If he did, I did not know that.
Right.
Like you say, they came, and in the Swan Island, you saw that one too. They have it in their log book because he shot right off the dock. So we don't do that today, but like you say, if they were there, and yeah, so absolutely, it was storied, truly was.
Okay. Any more questions? I'm doing my best to keep up. Let's see here. Did Coin Jock have any hunt clubs?
Coin Jock had, well, if you're thinking about Church's Island or Water Lily, but as far as what the canal, no, but gosh, you had the Whitsons, you had Hampton Lodge, you had Jones's. There were multitudes of the little clubs that were down through there. I'll tell you what Coin Jock was. That was a carver's mecca. When you get down and start looking at all the carvers that were right there in Coin Jock or Church's Island, all in that vicinity, Water Lily. Now you're talking Turkey as far as a waterfowl mecca, because like you say, O'Neill was making boats down there on the canal. Ned Burgess, good Lord. I'm looking through here now, of course, now that I'm thinking about it, racking my brain. Wallace O'Neill, so yeah, everybody through there was carving or boat building. Bob Morse, and like I say, when Mr. Burgess needed people to help him, Hambone, Twyford, like I say, the Twyford family lived out Church's Island, and they were caretakers all over there at Monkey Island. So, like you say, you couldn't drop a pin from, say, Coin Jock, Water Lily, and Church's Island and not find carvers and boat builders and somehow a family association connected with duck hunting. You really, you really can't.
Okay. Well, it looks like that may be the questions that we have today. We would, again, thank you we would like to thank our guests for joining us today. We thank Miss Sharon for coming with us from Kerala today. Normally we would, in fact, we had planned to have planned to kind of do this together at the museum, but just with the number of cases at the rate that they are right now, we decided to kind of go separately a little bit. So, yeah. But we're looking forward to having everybody back here at the museum. We just ask everybody, remember your 3 W's, because the faster that we can get everything under control, hopefully the faster we'll be able to have everybody back at the museum. But just remember, if you would like a day trip, a day out of the house, the Outer Banks Wildlife Center, they're open too. I'll let you, if you want to.
Yes, everybody, come see us. We're here Monday through Friday from 9 to last entry 4:30 and open till 5. The movie's showing. The exhibit gallery is open. I'm always able to join somebody who has a question. Like you say, like Lori said, we require a mask and keep your hands washed, and we have little stickers on the floor so you can maintain your distance, but we're still here, and we're still happy to have you here, and come on over and see us.
So,
I'd like to come over and see you, Lori. Like I say, I haven't been over in a while, so.
yeah. And we're again, the museum's open. We invite you to come in. We're just not, I think even over at the Outer Banks Wildlife Center, we're just not having the gatherings together. You're just more than welcome to come and visit.
Yep.
But we're just not having our gatherings, and we're missing it. It's a totally different world for us, and we're doing everything we can to get everyone back so that we can be together and not have to do, well, we will still host our History for Lunches virtually for our out-of-state or just people that cannot make it in to the museum, but we just miss seeing everybody, having to contact with everyone. I did have one question. Exactly where are you located at in Corolla?
We are in the historic Corolla Village, which is basically, if you needed an address, was 1160 Village Lane. We are in the park, Whalehead, and you'll be able to see it. And of course, our building and the Currituck Beach Lighthouse. So we're down here, like I say, we're across from the Corolla Light shops. We'll be on the east side of the road, and we're on the west.
If you have not had the opportunity to visit, I highly suggest. It's a beautiful site. Not only can you visit the Outer Banks Wildlife Center for Education, but you can also take in the lighthouse and the Wellhead Club at the same time. Yep. And they have some cute little shops there if you like to shop.
Yes. And come spring, we'll have our boat museum open. So the county will. And so we're going to become even a better site.
Awesome. I will be in Corolla this weekend.
We will not be open, unfortunately, but
I do. So I'm going to give you, after we talk, I'm going to give you a telephone number, and maybe you and Miss Barbara can connect. So I will give you that information at the end of the program. How about that?
Sounds good.
So that you can connect. So again, thank you to everyone. We're glad that you joined us today. We will have another History for Lunch on Wednesday, February the 3rd. Again, that's Wednesday, February the 3rd at 12 p.m. And we're going to have the Honorable Janice McKenzie Cole join us. She as a part of our Women Breaking Barriers here in Northeastern North Carolina. So please, we'll be getting that link up soon on our Facebook page, or you can email me, Lori, here at the museum, and we will give you that link so that you can join us on Wednesday, February the 3rd at 12. Again, Miss Sharon, thank you.
And thank you for having me, Lori.
Thank you to all of our visitors.
Yes, indeed. Thanks.
You all have a great day.